The TED Talk that I analyzed was a speech by Tim Urban, and it was a speech about the inside of the mind of a procrastinator. Tim, purpose of the speech is about people that procrastinate and encourage us to think harder about what we are really procrastinating to do before we run out of time. Urban knows that procrastination does not make sense, but people still do it. Tim showed graphs on how regular people plan things out and the difference between procrastinators when they plan things out. He did not really show real graphs, or it wasn't really logical, but it was just the way that he perceived them. His speech was more comical than informational, but even though none of his graphs he showed were logical graphs, people can relate to them, to what he shows about procrastination. He still provides scenarios about procrastination that are actually true for procrastinators. That's why he is digging deep into the mind, because even with the logic of procrastinators, he knows so much about it, meaning that he was also a procrastinator growing up in college. When Tim explains the way of the mind using a monkey as example in his presentation, he was getting the audience to laugh more than being sad, and that's pathos in his speech. The whole time, Tim was engaging with his audience by giving everything in a procrastinator's mind names and reasoning. He draws the audience in by being funny and by being witty. And most of the time, he was very relatable with the graphs, and he mainly focused on the people in the audience that can relate a lot to procrastination. His drawings are very effective to the audience to draw them in every time. Tim started his speech explaining his procrastination in college and how it affected him when he was growing up. He was telling the audience about a time where he had to write a 90-page senior essay, but he did it within 72 hours before the due date, which is really bad for people with procrastination. He provided a lot of evidence. He knew a lot about what he was talking about in his speech. He even addressed his experience when TED Talk wanted him to do the speech. He didn't work on his speech until last minute, which he talks about procrastination. His organization in his speech, his transitions throughout the speech were very clear, and his presentation followed along very great. He started off good and was able to jump into getting the audience involved without messing up any transitions in his speech. The point he was making were easy to follow and not confusing it was all over the place. Tim did a great job at delivering this speech. He kept the audience attentive and laughing. There were no nervous habits or verbal fillers. He stayed relatable throughout the speech and provided comic relief the whole speech. But it fits very well the way he addressed the situation. There was only once where he stumbled over a few words or two, but he was able to gather himself back into the speech. Overall, his presentation was great, and he left a good impression on the audience. With a short amount of time he had for his speech, he still managed to get a lot of key points along in there. None could question him because the way he presented his speech, it was very relatable, coming from a procrastinator himself. And that was Tim's Urban speech.